Hi, I'm
Hello.
Mia, and I'm living in fear.
Hi, I'm Luis, and I'm also living in fear.
And this is Living in Fear, a horror film podcast. This is our first official one. We did a little trial run with Nosferatu last week. This is going to be talking about The Damned today, which is a 2024 film. So, who are you again?
I am Luis, and I'm living in fear. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm Mia's husband, and we like horror films. So, well, we like movies. I specifically like more sci-fi geared stuff, but I'm fond of horror. And
Yeah.
I like books. I read books. I play video games. I like good stories in general. I have a dog named
There we
Tally.
go. That's all I was waiting for. I was like, really? I
I
mean, we
have.
don't need to reveal a lot of information, but how are we going to not mention our dog?
What about you? Who are you?
I'm Mia. I love my dog. A little bit about me. I like movies a lot. Um, I mean, TV shows are cool too. They're good. I like playing games as well. I wish I liked to read more. I'm trying to get better at that. But yeah, that's kind of the basics. I think I lean more towards horror than you. Luckily, you're kind of just along for the ride with me. I have a couple questions to ask since this is our first one. Things that I'm interested in knowing, things that we haven't really discussed before, but things that I like to ask other people sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, first, I'm going to ask you, what was the first movie or trailer that gave you nightmares?
Can I say that most of these questions are
Mm-hmm.
about my childhood, and I have a bad memory of my childhood. I know that's probably like some weird trauma there, but yeah, I can't remember most of these questions or the answers to these questions. But I'll do my best.
But it's just the one, like, what's the first movie or trailer that gave you nightmares that you remember? Do you remember,
Hmm.
like, getting nightmares from anything?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I
It doesn't
think
have to be when you were four, it can be whenever.
I think I think the first this might be cliche because it's a movie about dreams.
Okay.
It's probably Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm.
I feel like Freddy Krueger was my brother and I. We were probably the most afraid of Freddy Krueger and Chucky. I don't know. I don't remember having nightmares about Chucky. He's more into the Chucky person. But I think there was this whole vibe about Freddy Krueger that just the whole concept of it was very unsettling, and I think that's what gave me nightmares.
Freddy was a good idea because you couldn't escape him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to sleep. So isn't that like that is what kind of makes him scary?
Yeah. Well, also the whole concept of him being more powerful, the more you're afraid of him,
Mm.
which is kind of like it's kind of like what Pennywise is too, right? Like the more you remember Pennywise, the stronger he gets.
Yeah, they like feed off that.
Yeah, I think Freddy Krueger gave me nightmares. I still remember that. Did you ever watch that Simpsons episode with Freddy Krueger?
I don't know that I did.
Or somebody? It was like a neighbor or something. It wasn't Freddy Krueger, but it was a similar concept where the whole town burned him alive or something, and he started haunting Bart and all the kids at school.
Hmm. See, I like Freddy. Freddy's like one of my like favorites growing up. I never found it that scary. I
Mm-hmm.
just really liked Robert Englund and his acting and like that's kind of more the like That's one of my favorite like slasher
Mhm.
style films. Like, and that's like my favorite like villain probably. If I have to like name one, would be Freddy. I just think he's fun. I will say, I don't know if I remember the first like movie that gave me like a nightmare necessarily. I remember certain things like kind of freaking me out as a kid, but I don't know. I guess one that gave me a nightmare is not even a horror film. It was Braveheart.
Whoa, that's weird.
um, yeah, there's a certain scene in there that I don't know. I was probably too young to see, and then I remember having a nightmare about that. But
Yeah.
horror film related, I remember having a nightmare after seeing the trailer to 28 Days Later. It might have even been 28 Weeks Later.
Oh, I think you've told me this before.
Mm-hmm. It's the one where the blood drips down into the guy's eye and then he like goes crazy. That like hadn't even seen the movie or anything, just saw that trailer and that creeped me out. And I remember having a nightmare on it.
That was a that was a really terrifying scene, especially for a kid.
Yeah.
And it's a type of scene that hadn't been done before, you know. And especially when there's so many like zombie movies.
Yeah. There's a few zombie movies where they're like running and stuff. There's like more now, but back then there weren't as many. Like zombies were
Mm-hmm.
usually like slower and stuff. So like seeing people become so quickly infected and then just like being so fast, that was just a really creepy idea to me. But I do really like that movie. It didn't scare me from seeing it. Probably just made me seek it out finally.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious to find out what actually does scare you, Mia.
All right. What else do we have? Do you remember what the first horror film you saw was?
The first horror film. I have fond, and I say fond in quotes, fond memories of The Exorcist.
Hmm.
So when did The Exorcist come out?
Oh gosh.
Should we do a little bit of research? Okay, 73. Okay, so it's I wasn't alive then, but I remember The
Yeah. So I
Exorcist.
was like, you weren't born when it came out. I knew that much. But yeah, I never saw it until we watched it together like a year or two ago. I think I was that kid that was allowed to see inappropriate movies growing up and rated R and stuff, but I don't think my family really. My parents didn't watch horror movies really.
Mhm.
That was like a me thing. I will say that started when I saw Sleepy Hollow, probably.
And is that really a horror movie?
No. And even as a kid, I didn't find it scary at all as a kid. I actually, so that movie came out in 1999, I believe. So 1999 was a very big year for little Mia. Um, I was more scared to see The Mummy. I remember going to the theater and being like freaking out and wanting to like leave before we even like went in and being convinced to like stay and watch it. And then like my mind was blown and I loved The Mummy and had a couple like creepy scenes, but it wasn't really like a straight horror film or anything.
Mhm.
But like Sleepy Hollow, went in no problem, was like wanting to see it, watched it, didn't find it scary at all, was just like fascinated. And that like again, big movie that changed me. And I was like Tim Burton. I loved the aesthetic of it, creepiness. Like I was all in. And I think that's where I started like seeking out horror films more, like on my own. And we watched things. We watched Freddy and stuff like at friends' houses and stuff like that. But I don't feel like they were ever the ones that our parents like watched. Our parents watched more like action movies and war movies and things like that.
It seems that you don't you don't seek scary movies. You seek more of a horror vibe aesthetic in movies. Something that's more cooler than like scarier, I would say. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
I mean, I like the feeling of being scared. I don't know how many movies actually do that for me. I think those are some of the ones that do that, though, are some of my favorites. Hereditary, that end was like, psh, things went from 0 to 100 real quick. As Above, So Below. That movie had some things that genuinely like freaked me out, and that's why like that stuck with me, and like that's now one of my favorites. I rewatch it and it's like not scary anymore. But just when like a movie can actually make me like feel something intensely, that's when I'm all in.
Yeah.
So I talked about some movies that had a big impact on me as a kid. What are some that had a big impact on you? It doesn't have to be a horror film. Could be anything.
So this one is easy, and you already know what it's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
It's the movie that made. You know what? This is actually kind of a horror vibe too. Like a horror. Like this might fall under horror for me. And that's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Because I feel like that movie is both beautiful and terrifying. Like I feel like I find space, very poetic, but also very, very scary. But just the overall vibe of that movie just made me fall in love with science fiction. But it also scared the shit out of me. I think it's just the monolith presence and the sounds that it created, the weird psychedelic colors at the end.
To me, it's definitely could be seen as a horror film. I find it not scary and like it's gonna make me have nightmares or anything, not like your typical, but it's very unsettling. I find space very unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that like it's the type of unsettling that I like seek out. I think it's like more of a like realistic unsettling. Like
Yeah. I mean,
the
space is
unknowing, the infinite area, like it's just
space is scary.
those are the real life fears that I'm like, no, let's push that to the back of my head. Like thinking about death or something. That's the kind of stuff I'm like, I'm good without that. Let's instead deal with scariness of a murder or like some demonic thing that I don't think is actually real. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that movie
Yeah.
literally changed my life. I started reading science fiction. I started writing science fiction. I went into books, and that's when I decided to go and do my undergrad in literature. Not in science fiction literature, but just in literature and literature in general. Still an incredible movie, and I'm probably gonna talk about it in some other podcast again.
When did it come out?
That was 68.
So again, a movie that came out like way before you were born. Do you remember how old you were when you watched it?
I want to say I was in my either early 20s. It was definitely after high school.
Wow, so that's like a later one.
Yeah, that's later. No, I was a dumb kid when I was in high school. I wasn't into these cool movies. I was just. You think I would have watched 2001: in Space Odyssey in high school and be like, oh yeah, this movie changed my life?
I mean, some. I don't know how many like movies apart from like watching when I was like a kid that like really changed my life. I feel like the big movies that had an impact on me again were like when I was like 9 years old. That was like, yeah, Star Wars: A Phantom Menace. You had The Mummy. You had Sleepy Hollow. Like that was just such a big time era for me.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I would have thought you were like, yeah, I would have thought you were a teenager when you saw Space Odyssey.
I think if I had seen it as a teenager, I wouldn't have liked it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely watched it. I think I was like early 20s maybe when I had watched it. Or no, maybe I was like later teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't do it for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because I saw Star Wars. I remember when I first saw Star Wars, and it was a re-showing
Mm-hmm.
of Empire Strikes Back,
Yep.
and my friend took me to it. And that was I was young, like a kid, and
Yeah.
I liked Star Wars, but I wouldn't say, oh man, I want to start reading all science fiction stuff because Star Wars is not really science fiction.
It's fantasy.
It's like it has
Yeah.
lasers and it has space wizards and
Yeah.
magic.
That's a sci-fi fantasy type thing. So I can see why that didn't awaken the like science part of you watching that. Yeah. My final question I want to ask tonight.
Okay.
Is there a certain horror subgenre that you lean towards? Would you say that's like a sci-fi horror then?
I don't think I would lean towards science fiction
Okay.
because if I'm specifically going out of my way to see a horror film
Mm-hmm.
and I can choose any film, but I wouldn't pick science fiction because usually science fiction isn't. I guess it's not scary. Usually it's more science fiction-y than horror.
Yeah.
I would say maybe psychological horror.
Okay.
Like, well, this is also science fiction, but like The Thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Invaders of the Body Snatchers or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? That's kind of sci-fi horror.
But I don't know.
Okay.
That's a tough question because
Even I have a hard time answering that. I was just interested in what you would say. I feel like nowadays I'm kind of probably more the like art house or that style.
mhm. I would say anything with practical effects,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
the Thing, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Even most recently, The Substance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to see a lot of CGI either.
Something that's very like the monster is very weird looking, and it tries to disturb you in some way.
Yeah. Or even just not showing the monster is a great idea.
But like, yeah. So I guess it might be easier if we speak in terms of what you don't prefer. So like, I don't care about slasher films. Like, I don't care if it's a guy in a leather-faced mask chopping people up. I don't. Sometimes I don't care if it's a clown either. Like,
I think you prefer more story, right? Because that's how I am.
yeah, I
Like,
would
I
say
want a
so.
good story. I like the atmosphere and everything. But I'm also like, I just like horror films in general. I will watch a bad horror film and still enjoy it. I'm not looking for a bad one, like the Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey,
Mhm.
like type bad. Like, I don't want that in my life.
Yeah,
But things that I know like aren't going to be amazing. I, as a teenager, watched all the scary movies in the theater, Wrong Turn, I Know What You Did Last Summer, like all those types of things that were like not always the best, but I just had fun watching them. But if it's something I'm like that I'm gonna really like recommend and like think about for the years to come, it's something like Hereditary
yeah.
or something like that.
Well, that's another thing too. Is I don't necessarily seek out these types of movies like Hereditary.
Mm-hmm.
These type of movies that like try to make you uncomfortable with not necessarily with the horror elements, but like the maybe like the psychological disturbing elements. Like for example, the beginning of Midsummer or the mid part in Hereditary. Like those are the scariest moments simply because they're just something horrible has happened to a family.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that's probably what scares me the most. If there's anything that does in horror movies, is these really disturbing moments with relating to family.
I think we like a lot of similar horror films.
Cool.
Want to jump into the movie?
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay. So we're talking about The Damned, 2024 film. Director Thorder Paulson. Writers Jamie Hannigan and Thorder Paulson again. Stars Odessa Young. Is Ava? Is it Eva or Ava?
I'm
I
not
feel like
sure.
they called her Miss and Ma'am a lot.
Yeah. Miss.
Joe Cole was in it as Daniel. Lewis Gribben was Jonas. Siobhan was Helga.
Don't know any of these names.
Scully, Ragnar, Haken, Aaron. Okay, I mean, 2 Game of Thrones guys were in it.
Yeah, that's all I know. The Hound.
Yeah. I was like, is that the Hound? And then I was like, oh, look, another guy. Like,
It's the older guy, right? The other older guy that was in Game of Thrones.
yeah. The
Like-
2 older characters, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're not that old, but like older than the other guys were pretty young. Basically, it's in a little village. It's a little fishing village. It seems like they all go there during this certain time of year. This woman has a little like housing spot that they come stay in while they're out fishing. It's the 19th century. It's the winter area. It's like harsh winter time, like snow and everything really bad. Everything's frozen. And things go wrong. I mean, basically it starts off, they're already running out of food. They're using the bait at this point. And then before they can even go out on their next fishing trip, they see a ship in the distance sinking. They make the choice to not help. And then there are some consequences for that, let's say.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm looking at
Quick,
the poster.
easy. I like the poster. The poster made me want to see it.
I like the poster too.
It was a little different than what I was expecting. I went in not knowing anything. We didn't see the trailer. I knew it took place in a fishing village. I saw that like quick little line from a summary, but other than that, didn't know anything. Didn't know who was in it. It looks like it says it's an Icelandic fishing village. Yeah.
Which I feel like the poster doesn't make it seem that that's where they're at. I mean, it's very simplistic, it's not... I thought it was more foresty area, but no, it's like up in the mountains near the ocean.
Yeah, it's right on the coast. It's... Yeah,
in Iceland or Norway or somewhere. But I guess you answered that. It's Iceland.
Yeah. I did find it interesting that it's like her and this other woman like running the place basically. And it does sound like they're only there during that time period for everyone to fish.
Yeah.
Based off of them saying they were surprised that she came back, the younger girl, Eva, because her husband had died the previous year.
Okay, so it was the previous year.
I mean, it was the last time they went. I don't know if it was a year ago or whatever, but I would imagine.
Because that's why she's running things, right? Because her husband died?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what did you think? Did you like it?
I want to say, yeah, I think I liked it quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not so sure about the ending, but we can talk about that later, I guess.
Okay.
But I kind of like that it's more of a... I don't know. It's kind of a simple premise, and all it takes place in one location.
You know what it really reminded me of?
What?
Another movie that you like?
Which? Oh, The Thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
it, it
yeah.
it totally had that vibe.
I mean, it's got sort of the same beats. You know, it's
Yeah. No, it really. I mean, it doesn't have like the straight like who can we trust type thing that the thing has going for it, and it doesn't have like these
I
like
mean,
crazy.
there's a little bit of that.
I mean, a little, but it's not as much. Like that's like a big part of the thing. This is like them all kind of turning on each other, but not in the same way.
Yeah.
And this doesn't have the, crazy body horror stuff, like practical effects and stuff that the thing had. But yeah,
Yeah.
I liked it. I don't think it was like some life changing movie or
Mhm.
anything, but like I'd watch it again. It was, I was kind of curious the whole time if it was like all gonna be like in the end like nothing.
Mhm.
Was it just like in their head they're just kind of like starving, they're constantly like drinking, and they're just kind of
Mhm. Well, I wasn't sure what it was about at the beginning. Even as the
yeah.
movie went on, I was like, "Where's this going?" And since we don't watch any trailers,
Hmm.
and just looking from at this poster that I have in front of me, it seemed like it was more about her and something's up with her, and
Hmm.
maybe she's like killing everybody, or the town's out
I
to get her. So sort of, it's giving me like
Yeah,
witch vibes.
I thought it was going to be more them all turning against her. Yeah, I thought they were going to like accuse her of like witchcraft or something.
But yeah, no, yeah, same here. But yeah, I mean, everybody ended up being really nice to each other, sort of.
I mean, sort of.
Sort of,
I mean,
yeah,
even when she was like freaking out though, because this is the 19th century.
yeah.
So I feel like a lot of what we hear about from those times and everything is if the women are being hysterical and stuff, then they're just kind of like, it's like, oh, you're just a woman, you don't know anything,
Mhm.
or like they just, I
But
don't know,
but they
not
all
listen to them.
yeah,
They
they all listened to her, and
Yes, they were very respectful the whole time. They listened to her. They weren't like, oh, you're crazy, like it was
even the other lady, the older lady who was like the superstitious
Helga.
one. Like at first they were like, "What if it's her? She did all this," but then they quickly were like, "No, it can't be her." You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of expected them to turn on each other more and to have kind of more of that like psychological, like it still seems like that was their them kind of losing their minds, especially based off like the ending. But it wasn't as much in the forefront as I was expecting. Like I guess at the end of the day, like they pretty much did like kill each other,
Hmm.
or at least like some of them did. But yeah, not in the over the top way I was expecting. Do
So
you
what?
think Go ahead.
Why is it called The Damned?
Mm,
Like, why did they choose The Damned instead of some other title like that's closer to what's happening, like The Draugr or something, you know? Or some Icelandic Nordic fairy tale title, because it seems like this is what it's about. I think this movie was trying to do a
it was like a folklore
yeah,
type. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I kind of got.
and like that, but that was like their main premise. It's like, let's do this, let's film this all on location in Iceland or wherever,
Hmm.
and let's really get the vibes right and the folklore right or whatever. But
I mean, I feel like a lot of the time they don't name movies after that kind of thing anyway, though, because people
mhm.
don't know what it means.
but
So, like, even like lamb,
Yeah,
right? Probably had some like Icelandic folklore type
yeah.
stuff in it, but it's just called lamb.
But that's even closer, though. That's closer to what actually happens. This is just the damned.
I mean, they were all kind of damned, right? It
Anyways,
just seems like that village in general
yeah.
was just like she even said in the beginning, like her first like words were like, "We're not supposed to be here.
Hmm.
That wasn't a place for humans to like survive." So I think just them being there, they were damned from the beginning. Do
Yeah.
you think that they made the right decision by not helping the shipwrecked crew?
Yes, the first time. No, the second time.
See, I feel like I would almost say the reverse. To me, it made like they made it seem like they weren't going out the first time because it was too dangerous to do so.
Hmm.
But it was daytime. They could have, I don't know, had less of them on the boat so that they could maybe go out and get more people. And that even like the food thing was even something I was thinking about originally when the shipwreck was happening. You could see it sinking. I was like, I don't know, maybe they have like food or something that could help them too. So maybe if they go rescue it, the people, they'll be like, hey, we have some food here too that like we can still save from the shipwreck before it completely sinks.
I think things would have gone way worse.
It would
I
have been
agree. I agree with
daytime.
her trying to keep. She's as the head of the company, this company, and her in charge of these people's lives, and she chose not to do it because she didn't want to put her employees in danger. So I kind of agree with her decision not to do it at the
I think that
beginning.
makes sense. However, I don't understand why it was like, let's go now when it's pitch black and
Yeah,
fill up our boat with all of our people
yeah.
to go
I.
and get some food. I get that they were starving and they were desperate,
Mhm.
but it just like, it was like, if it wasn't safe enough during the day to go possibly rescue people, do you think it's any better now that it's nighttime? Like,
No, that was a poor decision.
yeah. And everybody like went. So then, yeah, you couldn't possibly save anyone. So I don't blame them for not saving anyone. But yeah, it was just that didn't make sense to me. But I guess, they were desperate.
I
They were
mean,
hungry.
they got one barrel of food. I mean, just take what you can get. Don't try to get more.
I mean, but how long was that food going to last them?
I mean, it's better than what they had.
Yeah, but they were just desperate. Desperate people. We've never been in this situation where we're like freezing and starving. I can't really judge all their decisions.
Yeah. I just know that I think like, if that were me, I would probably take what I could get. It's like, oh, we can survive maybe 2 more weeks now or
Yeah.
something.
No, I think so too. I think her first decision, I understood. The second decision, when they all decided to go out, I didn't understand that. I was surprised that the head fisherman guy died first.
Yeah, the hound, he died.
Down. And maybe that's why they cast him like that, because they were like, look, nobody's going to expect you to die first. And even by the end of it, the people that survived, I was like, I wasn't expecting these to be
Hmm.
like the last people standing.
The 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 young nerdy dudes.
Yeah.
The
It
goofy
was like
dudes.
the religious dude and then the like other wimpier guy
Yeah.
and then her.
What did you think about the actual creature? The
Um,
droger.
I mean, do you think that was an actual creature?
I
I don't
mean,
know if
just
creature
list.
is the right word. It just was like a haunted person. She was just at least seeing like the victims or a victim of the shipwreck, right?
But I mean, just without having the context of the ending,
Mm-hmm.
at first they make it seem like it's some weird swamp thing. I mean, Draugr, Draugr or whatever, however you pronounce it, that's
Yeah.
been in fantasy, you know, slop for eons. You know,
Yeah.
you play any video game and there's a Draugr that you have to fight, and it's usually some undead humanoid thing.
Yeah.
Maybe comes from the swamps or something.
I mean, I liked the idea of it. I liked that, like, it was like dripping and it like sounded sloshing as it was like moving around, and it made sense for the situation they were in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was fine with it.
What about
I don't
like its actual features? Because it you did see its face a couple of times.
I don't know how, like, I don't know. It just looked kind of like a CGI'd person. Like it looked like they just put some effect over a
Mm-hmm.
person or something. I don't feel like it was, and it just didn't seem that clear to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I really disliked or
Mm-hmm.
liked it.
I don't think I was impressed. Is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
When they actually showed the thing,
Hmm.
I feel like they could have gotten a little more creative with a Droger, like one of the most famous Nordic creature things. Um, so, but it
I guess
was
I
just,
don't know that much about them.
but it was just. I mean, but even then, it was just like some humanoid thing with a CGI'd splotchy face. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was just supposed to look like one of the victims, just kind of come back to life and like haunting them. How did you feel about the sound and the music choice?
I think I like. Yeah, I like the music. I
Do
don't.
you know what it reminded me of?
Yeah, 2001.
Yeah.
And that's yeah. I mean that's why that movie's a classic. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think they use the same score though. I think this is
I mean, I don't think it was the
yeah.
same exact score or anything, but it was very like clearly
Like
taking note from that.
yeah, because Space Odyssey was an old. They used an old
Yeah.
orchestra, like an orchestra, like choir piece from an old
Yeah.
composer. I think I'm not too sure about that. And I've heard that sound or that specific track used in multiple movies.
Hmm.
But it is yeah, it's definitely something that was recorded for this movie, and it's definitely more female voices too.
Yeah. I kind of liked the idea of it and like the female voices. I don't know that I liked when it like came in
Mm-hmm.
to the scene. Like it was kind of more abrupt, and that was like the first time I feel like we heard the female voices. I like the idea of it though, because this is all about like fishermen and stuff. So then you have like sirens are a big thing in the you know olden fishing times. Like, so I like the idea of hearing female voices, but yeah, I don't know that like it sounded a little too epic for what the scene was.
Yeah, yeah, I can get that.
Like it felt like they were dealing with something bad and something like kind of evil, but not like the ultimate evil like in some other like movies. This just felt on a smaller scale, and that music sounded a little too epic for that moment. But I liked some of the other sound moments.
Mm-hmm.
I like the thing that movies do where they take away a lot of the sound and just kind of have like where you can hear her breathing or you could hear like the sloshing of water even though you know there's all these other sounds happening. It just really like shows those ones,
Yeah.
cuts out all the others. Like I like that in horror films.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. I like I like when they use silence more than actual sounds.
Hmm. And it's fun to like focus in on certain sounds the same way that you would focus in on, you know, a certain scene, a certain visual.
Yeah. You know what I really like in horror movies?
Hmm.
When you see something on the screen but that you can't quite make out.
Hmm.
There was several
Yeah.
moments where she looked in the corner of the room and there was something there, but she couldn't quite make it out, but also we
Hmm.
couldn't quite make it out.
Yeah, I definitely found myself watching the background like the entire time, like looking for things. And I don't know if that's just because it's a horror movie in general or if it's because of what this one was setting up. I
Yeah.
really liked the end part with Helga, where it like looked like one of the creatures standing there, but then like the crow flew off it. And then
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, oh, it's just a rock, you know? And then like it's like, oh no, it's not just a rock, it's Helga.
It's Helga.
She's like bending over. So it's like
Helga Pataki.
it like threw off my brain like multiple times. Yeah, poor Helga, man.
She had it right the whole time.
I mean, did she? Was it actually that, or were they all just kind of like going crazy at the end of the day?
Well, yeah, I don't know. That's what I want to talk about next, I guess. Unless there's something
Okay.
else you want to talk about before we get to the ending.
Um, I mean, I think one of my only other like couple things to mention. Again, I liked the use of all the superstitions and
Mm.
everything because it was about a fishing village. And again, like fishermen have a lot of superstitions.
Yeah.
Like so I thought this setting for it was perfect. Um I also found the religious guy pretty interesting. I liked that he he's kind of like hating on them all because they're believing in these things and he's like, "No, you should be begging to God for help or whatever." Like but then comes back and is like, "Oh, I'm sorry about all that, you know, I shouldn't have said that." And
Mm-hmm.
like you're like, "Oh, he's like kind of being nice, you know?"
Who
Like
was.
for having
Is that the
yeah.
guy that was banging or like making the cross?
Yeah,
Okay.
cuz then he comes back
But
like the
yeah,
next morning or
that's
something.
that's not the same guy that fell, right? Off screen and died.
No, he's the one that the other guy attacked. The guy that she liked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then he's the one that like survives in the end. But while he's like saying all this like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that," you know, you're like, "Oh, okay," you know, like
Yeah.
he's not that bad. But then like next thing you know, he's like, "You know, it's never too late to ask forgiveness for what we have." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, here he goes with the religious stuff again." He's like shaming her for not like I just thought that was funny. It's like he just couldn't help himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was surprised that he was one of the ones that survived.
I have a gripe with the movie too,
Okay.
and this is related to sound. And I this gripe, this is I hate this in most movies, and it's literally jump scares when the
Mm.
movie can easily do without them and still have it be the
Mm-hmm.
same movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like some of the jump scares didn't make any sense. Like there was one where she's looking at a corner and then like an explosion happens in her mind and then it cuts back, but it's
That
so
happened a couple
loud.
times. Hmm.
It's so loud, and it just makes you jump. I'm like, what? What was it? Was that really just to try to jump scare me?
Yes, and that's what it felt like. They did the a few times, and I didn't like that. I don't like when there's an unearned jump scare when it's
Hmm.
just a loud noise, quiet followed by a loud
Yeah.
noise. It's like that's not.
And
Yeah, you got me, but it was cheap.
there's another thing they did, which is they cut from a from a quiet moment to the next
Hmm.
scene, but the
To the next
beginning,
day or whatever, right?
yeah, but the next
Hmm.
scene is a loud
Yep.
clang or something.
It's not even scary or
Yeah,
anything. It's them like banging on wood.
yeah.
Yeah, that one in particular, I took note of and was like, I did not like that.
It's just
Yeah,
yeah, it's just a cheap jump scare.
it is. And you know what? I expect it in like these more teenage targeted scary movies, and like
Hmm.
slashers and things like that are like less serious, but this one felt like it's trying to be more of a horror film, with like good story and plot and like the atmosphere. So for them to do that, it just felt, yeah, it felt cheap.
Anyway, that's it. That's one of my gripes.
Okay. So what did you think about the ending?
I am a bit confused. Are you confused?
Um, yeah.
I don't.
Like, was that guy real?
Yeah, I don't think it was. Like, let's answer this. Was the entirety of this Droger superstition all in her mind? Was this entire movie all in her mind? Is basically what I'm asking. Or was something genuinely haunting them?
I lean towards they weren't actually being haunted, but my confusion comes from like I think it could have done without that guy at the end. I honestly thought as soon as she was taught how to use the gun, I was like, she's going to end up like shooting one of these people that she's with.
Yeah.
She's going to panic and think it's them and she's hallucinating and then she's going to shoot and it's going to be one of them.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I guess it's good it didn't go that way because that would have been super obvious, but I almost wish it would have gone that way
Mm-hmm.
because instead they throw in some random
Some rando, yeah.
random guy. I mean, he had the watch. So was he supposed to be like a good spirit looking for his dead brother that was like or was he not like an evil spirit in the end? Because that
I
watch was on one of the dead guys.
I took it as he's an actual guy.
That's what I took it as too. But it's just like, but where did he come from? How did he get there?
I want to say he just survived the shipwreck and is or maybe it's related to the shipwreck. Some guy looking for his
That's what
crewmates.
yeah, originally that's what my mind jumped to was like, oh, it's this guy that came looking for those people. He just, I guess they were so caught up in their own things that they didn't see somebody else show up. Like, who knows? Maybe he has a boat or ship out there.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems weird that it's just this like one guy by himself.
And he's the one that took the food, right?
I don't know, is he?
He said that, yeah, at the end. He's
Oh,
like, I'm
okay.
sorry, I took your food or something.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so why would he just come and take their food? And then
What?
why was he looking for his brother? Why didn't he do that before? Yeah, that part, yeah,
It's.
I didn't understand the ending. It went over my head, I guess.
I think. I think the movie tried to have this ending maybe deeper than it actually needed to be. I think they could have done well enough with just a like this is an actual haunting. Like I don't think they needed to add this. Oh, it was all in her mind aspect.
I think they could have gone the all in her mind aspect, but
It was
throwing in that guy at the end, whereas it could have been like somebody who she was already knew.
yeah. Yeah, maybe if they didn't even show that guy at the end.
Yeah.
You know, they showed maybe. I thought they could have easily left it without him showing it and just hearing the human screams. Because you do hear the human screams when he's on
Mm-hmm.
fire. And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh crap, she burned one of the people. But then the
Yeah,
two guys showed up, you know?
exactly. And I guess they knew that you were going to be expecting that. So, like, did they do that just to, subvert your
Yeah.
expectation and have some type of like a twist? But it didn't feel like a good twist. It just felt like a kind of confusing twist.
Yeah, I agree with you. 100%.
Yeah, I think that is what kind of like ruined it. I think it was
Yeah.
really interesting up until that point.
Yeah, it definitely brought it down a notch for me.
And who knows, maybe, after this I'll go and like hear what other people say or like other ideas about it and then I'll be like more on board, but yeah. I mean, it was interesting because like she clearly had a lot of guilt for the people dying to begin with, especially like the guy that grabbed her trying to get on the boat and then one of her people hit the guy in the head and killed him. Because that's like she saw that guy, right? Like a couple times. That was like one of the like creatures, it seemed like. So it seemed like that.
I I thought that was the creature that she was
Yeah,
seeing. Like
right?
the only one that was
Yeah.
missing from the casket
Mm-hmm. So it seemed
is
like that was haunting her, like just that it was her decision to do all that, and then this guy died horribly because of her. Felt like that was like eating away at her. So it made sense that she had this stuff in her head, but yeah, the guy at the end,
yeah.
I just
It was kind of a sloppy ending,
yeah.
a turbulent ending that didn't quite stick the landing.
Mm-mm.
How does it end? It just cuts from her face, right? Is that how it ends?
Yeah, I guess so. It shows the guy talking and holding the watch and everything and saying all the stuff and
But then she runs outside and the two guys watch the fire,
yeah.
and then she's just looking and remembering what happened in there, but then it just cuts from her face to black.
Yeah, but she's outside already when it's showing what had just happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, it cuts to her being outside, the guy's watching, and then it cuts to what had happened inside right then, and then cuts back to her face, and then I think it ends. But again, she looks like guilty because someone else died because of her reaction. Did you not? Did you feel like she looked?
Well, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out if it's a happy ending or a, well, like a successful ending.
Yeah, it kind of like it makes it seem like that at first. She's like, I did it, I killed him, blah blah blah, and like they can finally breathe a sigh of relief. It's over. She got the creature, but then it cuts to it and shows that it was that guy. I wasn't left thinking though that the creature was still alive if it ever was, and that they were going to end up succumbing to it. Like I didn't feel like it was like a haunting ending because of that. If anything, it was kind of a bleak ending because it seemed like she killed someone that she shouldn't have.
I
I
think
don't know.
at the end of the day, I think this movie wants us to believe that it is a creature.
See, I
And
feel like I lean the other way.
I don't think I feel like there's not enough setup for it being all in her mind or something.
I don't even think it was necessarily all in her mind. I think it was in like all of their minds. I think they're just.
But then again, isn't that implying that they're all infected by something?
I don't think that they're infected.
I
I
mean,
think
not
it's just.
or haunted by something, not infected, but you
But
know what I
even
mean.
that, I don't. I think it's just a bunch of people that are starving and are constantly drinking and drunk and just kind of, going crazy out in the
So
wilderness. Like, I don't think. I think.
what you're ultimately saying that this is a movie about paranoia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's more evidence to counter that point that there is something going on.
I mean, how did a lot of the people end up dying?
From my understanding is this creature wants them to kill themselves somehow. I mean, I guess that ultimately is the point.
I mean, I guess that's where like the superstitions and stuff come from, though, right?
Yeah.
Is because maybe like, and that's like one of the things as like modern times you like look back and you're like, oh, where did these people come up with these ideas? And then you're like, oh, well, it could actually be scientifically explained by this.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe it's because I'm watching it through modern eyes or something, but it seems like it's a bunch of people. They were starving, they were freezing, they were constantly drunk on empty stomachs, basically. Who knows? Maybe they were even eating bad food. And they just kind of started to like see things, especially because Helga puts it in all their minds, especially the girl
Yeah.
who's already like been through a lot. She's already lost her husband and is in a bleak spot. And then Helga's poisoning her mind with all these superstitions. And again, fishermen are already pretty superstitious with things. And so, if it's in your mind, you're more likely to like see it. You see something in the corner that you can't explain, you're going to make up what it could be.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I think that's technically the point. Is it's trying to make you believe or play with your beliefs and your what ideas you have about what's real and what's not, and how what paranoia does to people, coupled with superstition and all these other things.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy at the end, I think is just what confuses me either way. Was he another spirit? Was he just a random guy that showed up? Was he part of the shipwrecked crew to begin with? Was he in her head, which doesn't make sense?
I mean, I think ultimately it was just a random guy that showed up.
But just by himself?
Yeah, I don't know.
And why did he already, like, he stole the food, what, like a couple days beforehand or something? Like, where was he in the meantime? And, like, why wouldn't he make himself known? Like, the coffins were, like, pretty close to where their, like, housing was, right? Like, so much of it didn't make sense. It seems like it's one thing if he thought maybe they were dangerous, maybe they killed his brother, but like I don't know if they were like these horrible people that killed his brother. Like, it doesn't seem like they would bury them in coffins, like put them in coffins and take the time to do all that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I'm curious to see what theorists say.
Yeah. Yes.
I just don't want. Here's what I hate about theories: is sometimes they grasp at straws
Mm-hmm.
when there's like no evidence of it. They just. But what if this had happened? What if this? Well, there's a bunch of what ifs there. I can say what
Mm-hmm.
if a dragon was in the top of the mountain casting all these imaginations onto these people. I could say that, but
Yeah. I mean, I would be interested to hear more from people that are more familiar with Icelandic folklore
yeah,
and things like that. That's
yeah.
what I like to hear about.
Yeah, that's something that's going
Because
to be really
obviously I
interesting.
don't know about that. And so if there is more relation to that, which I'm sure there is, I'm sure there's like some really interesting ideas there that I just don't know anything about. I'd like to know that. Would you rewatch this?
No. But I would see like a video on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think all the performances were really good. I think the main girl did pretty good. I will say, okay, one of the things, it's so superficial.
Uh-huh.
The way they just were constantly getting wet and like didn't seem to care. And I'm like, maybe that's just because like when you're fishing and you're in that situation, like you're gonna get wet and it's just kind of not something to cry about.
Ooh.
Like it's just, but like, she'd walk up to the guy that's standing in the water and she's wearing her like shoes and her dress and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, you could stand back from the shore. You don't have to get yourself wet. It's freezing. That was just.
I mean, that's just what it's like living in the 1900s in a coast village.
It just felt like, why would you willingly step in the water if you don't have to? It's already so cold. And I was sitting there in a movie theater cold, which I kind of liked that I was cold because it kind of added to the atmosphere of it. But yeah, that was a superficial thing that I just kept being like, oh my gosh, I would be dying from cold. Yeah. I don't know that I would. I think had the end not happened the way it did, unless I find something really interesting that wins me over with the ending, I don't know that I'd want to rewatch it.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it. I don't know that I'd like go recommending it to like a bunch of people. I wouldn't not recommend it. Like I'd be like, yeah, it's worth it. Like watch. It was cool.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't think I would recommend it to like maybe
everyday people.
Yeah, maybe younger people.
Yeah.
Who are like, oh, I want to go watch a scary movie.
Yeah.
No.
But if you like, movies with just kind of horror atmosphere and a little more, I don't want to call it basic, but
like a slower movie, not.
Yeah. 19th century
period piece, yeah.
Kind of horror film. Yeah, it was cool. I'm not mad I watched it.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
How are we ending
What are we
this?
watch? We're gonna say what we're gonna watch next week.
Oh yeah, what are we watching next week?
I think we should watch Speak No Evil, the original one though.
Speak No Evil. Do we have a poster for that?
I actually don't know what the original looks like. Do I? Oh yeah, I guess I do. Because it's 2022. I keep thinking that it was like older than that, but it's not. It's from 2022. I would like to watch that one. Look, maybe I'll watch the remake after. But yeah. What is it? It's Dutch.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm curious to see that one too.
Yeah. I like seeing movies from other countries and seeing what they're doing
Yeah.
versus just,
Yeah, you've been on a Korean phase.
oh yeah.
You
You know,
just
it's fun to just like see a cover while you're looking on a streaming service and like be like, oh, this is a horror film. The rating is like, okay seeming. All right, let's turn this on. Let's see what it's about, and like maybe I'll read the quick summary or something. I usually don't watch the trailer. Maybe I'll look at like who's in it. But yeah, and I'm not afraid of subtitles. It makes me have to pay attention better.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this one. I'm not excited for the new one. Like I had no interest in watching it, but then I heard really good things about the original,
Yeah.
and so I didn't want to watch it and then look at the original after and not be impressed by it or something because I watched this new one.
Yeah. Yeah, I just saw the remake trailer so many times
Yeah,
and
and that's another thing. Yeah, I just didn't want. I feel like I know the whole movie already because of the trailer.
yeah. Yeah, I think the second though I found out it was a Danish film,
Danish.
I was more on board.
Yeah, I'm excited. Cool.
So yeah, that'll be next week.
This
Maybe we'll get better at this as we go. I'm
yeah.
sure this one was a little long, a little rough since it's our first one, but
And then there was a weird knock at the door and in between it.
yep, and a very loud dog barking.
Yeah. That I had to cut out.
Yep.
People wanting people looking for somebody. Knocked on the wrong door.
All right, cool.
Alrighty
So
then.
let's keep doing this.
Let's do it. Let's we gotta have like some outro or something. Like some
Some upbeat music.
We're all feared out. Or I don't know.
Oh, yeah,
We're
yeah.
not living in fear anymore. Something like that.
Sure. Sure. I think we'll have to think on that one.
All right. See
Goodbye.
ya. Bye.